Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub. My name's Lucas, this is Corey, and we're your Fox Fantasy Football Insiders.
That's right, Lucas. It's week 17
already.
And championship week for many of you in redraft, but in DFS, the battle continues on as we are in pursuit of deep sleepers for you in your daily fantasy lineups.
Yeah, last week it was one of our least exciting weeks, but you can't blame us. Right, Corey?
That's right. We had to shoot last week's show on a Monday. They shortened week for Christmas, and it was not pretty. So let's bring up last week. We're going to talk about it really quickly, and we'll move on to our picks for this week. Now, please note we are shooting this on Tuesday, so again, it's going to be a little bit of a guessing game for us. But again, follow us on Twitter at FFInsiders2548. We'll keep you updated should anything happen or we need to make any pivots, which we did last week. So, Lucas, why don't we bring up the chalkboard and you talk about your picks from last week before we get to mine?
Yeah, you bet. I picked Gabe Davis right away and felt really confident about the pick. And then sure enough, Christmas Eve, I'm sitting there on the couch having a nice cup of coffee. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, look at that, he's got COVID. So we brought this up last show that someone is likely to get COVID. It's the world we live in now. And the quick pivot was, I thought it was a strong pivot. It was Emmanuel Sanders, and apparently I should have chose Isaiah McKenzie because he was the big boom play on that offense. But yeah, Emmanuel Sanders fizzled out halfway through the season. He dropped an easy touchdown pass, which is just not like E-Man. So it's just a bummer. 4 points. What the heck? And then Kadarius Toney, he had 9 targets, 4 receptions for 28 yards, and this was weird because he led the team in receiving. It was just a very sad game. The Giants just looked awful. And then Jacoby Myers was, I guess you could say, the big boom player of the week when it wasn't. But 11 points. He had 8 targets, 6 receptions for 59 yards. Not the best week, but
not a lot of color to add there, Lucas. So I'll just go straight to my picks. Drew Lock, 7.12 points, finished dead on his slotted value. My big takeaway there is the Broncos pass catchers appear to struggle to catch passes, so that's not a good thing. Drew Lock made a lot of great throws. I honestly thought he played as good of a game as I've seen out of a Bronco quarterback.
Yeah, I thought so too.
It just looked continuously like the Bronco receivers were surprised to see the ball coming in that fast. Jerry Jeudy had a brutal drop. Big O had a drop that probably cost the Broncos the game. So I don't put that one all on Drew Lock, but obviously he wasn't going to win you any fantasy prizes, so you don't really care how I feel about Drew Lock's performance. Craig Reynolds, 8.1 points, because he was such a deep pick, he still finished 8 spots above his slotted value. Jamal Williams did return and was featured more heavily than I guess I thought they would. I thought they would continue to ride Craig Reynolds after he had accounted for 200 plus yards of offense over the last 2 weeks, but I am not a Detroit Lion coach, and so I don't make those decisions. And then finally, Tyler Johnson, just a big fat whoops. I mean, he had 43 snaps and didn't get targeted once. That's weird. So I don't know how that happened, but it didn't happen for Tyler Johnson, and that was, a popular pick amongst talking heads as well. Yeah. So I was sort of riding that hype train there, and it just didn't happen. Please note, last week I did mention Antonio Brown when I brought up the Tyler Johnson pick. Antonio Brown, I think, was going for 4,800 or 4,900 on DraftKings. Obviously ended up being a very good play. I think he finished in the top 10 at wide receivers for the weekend. Finally, our deep sleeper, Laquan Treadwell, at 9.4 points, so a solid game from Laquan Treadwell there. And Lucas, we went from our best week in week 15 as a team to our worst week as a team in week 16. So what do you know? How the mighty have fallen.
I know, and to put some more non-color on this, Scotty Miller was my deep sleeper, and that was also a goose. So
that's right.
The two Buccaneers wide receivers, high octane offense. I think he was targeted once. It's like, okay, all right, and then they just dominated the Panthers, and it was just
lesson learned. Or have we learned our lesson about those Buccaneers pass catchers? We will see. All right, well, we're going to get into our sleeper picks here real quick. Before we do that, we're going to talk about the Sports Hub. All new menu debuting soon here at the Sports Hub. Come on in and check out all their daily specials. They're open for lunch and dinner all week long. Got homemade pizza, homemade soups, hand-battered fresh fish on Fridays, and so much more. Don't forget to check out brunch as well from 10 to 1 on Saturdays and Sundays. Whatever the occasion, make sure you support the Sports Hub because without their support, we wouldn't be here bringing you our, great picks up until last week, but our very bad picks last week.
Right. It's a new week, week 17. We have a new slate. Brush that crappy week off, and let's we're going to bring you some good picks this week. So
let's do it. We're going to do that right now. And I'm going to get into my first pick.
Let's see it.
We are going with Trey Lance. His DraftKings price is $4,800. He averaged 18 fantasy points per game in the only 2 games he's played this year with meaningful snaps. Of course, I think it was week 4. Jimmy G went out early. Trey Lance came in, played about half the game. And then in week 5, Trey Lance got the start and obviously played that entire game. And in that week 5 start, he had 16 rushing attempts. So we love that amount of rushes from a quarterback. That almost makes it like you're having a running back at your quarterback position. He's got a great matchup, obviously, against Houston, a team we've picked on all year long. Now, I am issuing an early pivot alert. Stay tuned on Twitter as well. We'll keep you updated on this. Right now, again, it's Tuesday. As it appears right now, Jimmy G's got I believe, torn UCL and a fractured in his thumb, and is looking pessimistic to play, but they have not ruled him out. If Jimmy G is active and expected to start,
I'll be surprised.
That would be surprising, but if it does happen, I'm advising that you pivot your quarterback sleeper to Carson Wentz, who is only going for $5,700 on DraftKings.
Baby, I love this pick, man. We were waiting for this. Trey Lance, all the hype during the draft season. He's got the legs and everything. If he starts, he's going to win fantasy championships if you scoop him up in redraft leagues. So if he's still on the waiver wire, you scoop him up, and the matchup is great against crappy Houston. So.
Yeah, certainly in redraft leagues. I mean, what a potential option you have here at quarterback. This reminds me of Tim Tebow's late surge in 2010, I think it was, where he went out, or it might have been 2012, whatever it was, he went out and won fantasy leagues in those last couple of weeks of the season after being an irrelevant quarterback for the majority of his rookie season. And this has kind of got the makings of that a little bit.
I just want to really emphasize that. This is a great pick.
He's a must start, I think.
He is a must start.
If he starts.
Yeah, definitely in redraft, but the value in DFS, you can't go wrong. So if he is a starter, pick him up, because I want this to happen. I want to see this happen. I'm excited for it. So great pick.
Absolutely. All right, Lucas.
Yeah, for my first Week 17 sleeper, I'm going back to the Bills offense once again. Gabe Davis obviously didn't work out because of COVID, and then Emmanuel Sanders didn't perform the way we hoped. So who was left? I already mentioned him. The cheapest of them all, the big boom player from last week, Isaiah McKenzie. He took advantage of Gabe Davis and Cole Beasley missing out last week, big time. He got 11 of 12 targets for 125 yards and a touchdown, so he just had a massive game. We know for sure that Gabe Davis will be out again in Week 17 because he's not vaccinated. If Beasley is back, I still like McKenzie here. It sure won't be 12 targets, but I still think he looked great last week. The Bills will be going against the horrible Falcons pass defense, which is just really attractive. So you can scoop up McKenzie for $4,300 on DraftKings and $5,200 on FanDuel. Guess you can say I'm chasing the points a little bit, which that's fine. But I do like the matchup. It's going against the Falcons, and I just think Josh Allen is going to just light it up in fantasy again, championship week, just like last year. So
I mean, here's what I like about the Isaiah McKenzie pick. It's a guy who I do believe has big play, big value potential, regardless of even Gabe Davis can't play because he wasn't vaccinated. But even if Gabe Davis was back and Cole Beasley was back, it's not like you're wasting $4,300 on Isaiah McKenzie. This is a guy who can bust a game wide open. Kind of like Rondell Moore.
A little bit.
For the Cardinals.
Good flyer.
He's had big games with all the wide receivers active. They use him in a lot of different ways and have been featuring him out of the backfield a little bit more as they've continued to struggle to run the ball. So he returns kicks. He obviously, they design, again, out of the backfield, or whether it's those jet sweeps, they design 5 or so touches a game for him, even when everybody's fully healthy. So I think you can expect a big game regardless of the health situation in Buffalo from the former Denver Bronco, Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, let's hope so.
All right.
Let's hope so. Who do you got for number 2?
My second pick is Boston Scott. DraftKings price $4,900. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and I'm going back to the Eagles backfield once again. I have picked Boston Scott in the past. It didn't work out great, but in this situation, Miles Sanders already ruled out for Week 17. Last week when Sanders went out, Boston Scott and Jordan Howard actually split carries. Scott actually had one more carry than Jordan Howard in that time. And look, this is a guy who, even while Miles Sanders has been healthy, he's eclipsed double-digit fantasy points in 4 of his last 6 games that he's played in. That is excluding the random game where he was active, I think probably for emergency purposes, and he didn't see the field. So this is a guy who's had a very, very steady floor. And actually, if you include 5 of his last 7. I didn't include 5 of his last 7 because of the even double digits, but he had 9.9 points in the game that I'm not including here. So if it would actually really you include that, you're talking about 5 of the last 7. He's got a good matchup against a struggling Washington defense. I expect Boston Scott and Jordan Howard to split carries. I expect the Eagles to win this game, to get up, and it doesn't even really matter if they get up. This is a team that is really committed to running the ball. It's funny if you could play back the old footage. We talked about the Eagles back.
Never running the ball.
Week 4, whatever it was, just not understanding why they don't run the ball. And here we sit. They obviously watched the show. They got the message. And they are running the snot out of the football. And even if Jordan Howard starts, I mean, there's going to be plenty of carries to go around here. I think Boston Scott's good for 10 to 15 touches or more in this game, and is as good as bet as any to have a safe double-digit floor for fantasy points.
Yeah, we see a lot of teams that, split their backs 50-50. You got Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. You got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. So I'm not too worried about the split at all, and I think both of them can get in the end zone easily on a easy Washington defense. So nice pick.
Thank you. How about you, Lucas?
Yeah, next I'm going with a Jet. All right, so Braxton Berrios. And it's funny because I was tempted to select Berrios a couple weeks ago and I just couldn't find the courage to do it. However, now that he's produced impressive numbers for the last 3 weeks, I'm hopping on the trend. He's clearly the #1 wide receiver in New York right now. And yes, I realize that Elijah Moore will likely be back this week, but I think in PPR formats, Berrios is a great sleeper. He had double-digit fantasy points in his last 3 matchup, but just realized it's kind of a risky pick. There's plenty of games where he's only received 1 target, and that kind of worries me, but he's made them count sometimes, but he's just got to realize he's a boom-bust player. However, I think for $3,700 on DraftKings and $5,300 on FanDuel, he'd be a great dart throw for Week 17 matchup. Plays the Buccaneers, so it should be a pass-happy game script, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think that I've voiced my opinion on this show a lot about picking wide receivers who don't have great quarterback situations. Zach Wilson did have his best game last week.
Yeah, he looked good last week. He was running around a little bit, doing his thing.
And he has been relying on Berrios a little bit during this time. So, the Jets are looking for positives across the board in that offense. Berrios has certainly done a couple of nice things here over the last few weeks. So, if you're going to go with anybody in the Jets offense, why not Braxton Berrios?
Yeah, give me 11 points, please. Thank you. That'd be awesome.
All right. For my final pick, I'm going with another familiar name, Michael Gallup. His DraftKings price is $4,800. And for me, this is kind of the opposite logic of what Lucas just gave you for Braxton Berrios, which are both sound, reasonable logics. And this one just comes down to a guy who plays nearly every down. He has had at least 5 targets in every game that he has played in 2021. He has got a great matchup against an Arizona defense that's 27th in points allowed to opposing wide receivers, and there's points expected to be scored in this game. We love a big over-under. Over-under for this game is 50.5, which is pretty darn big. And, look, the Dallas offense went berserk last week and did so without really getting a ton out of Michael Gallup. I think they want to feed Michael Gallup and feature him this week and get their guy going in a game that should have a lot of points and be competitive. And I think Michael Gallup is obviously got a very, very high ceiling, but a sneaky good floor when you look back at his production so far in 2021.
Yeah, and he's extremely cheap. What did you say he was on DraftKings?
$4,800.
Nice. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. And yeah, you want pieces of that hungry offense.
That's right.
There's plenty to go around, and I think Gallup can definitely have a big game here in Week 17. Awesome. And for my last pick, I'm going with the Texans running back Rex Burkhead. Who would have thought? Here we are in Week 17 talking about Rex Burkhead. And why? Well, because he had a T-Rex performance last week. He took full advantage of David Johnson being out and led the Texans with 22 carries, 149 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Not to mention, he also added a couple catches as well. If Johnson does return, I still like Burkhead here, as he was already kind of trending upward in touches when Johnson was healthy. I think Rex will operate as the 1A back for Houston. Corey and I already just talked about splitting the backfield. We're not too worried about that here. Now, the Chargers have a terrible run defense, so I don't expect Rex Burkhead to explode like last week, especially with a tough matchup against the Niners this week. But he still has upside, especially in PPR leagues. And for the price, $5,000 on DraftKings and $5,600 on FanDuel, I think you can plug Rex into a flex spot in Week 17. I know you have some feelings about Rex Burkhead because semifinals.
So in our work league, our office league, it's a 14-team league, so it's a deep league, so you can forgive my opponent, but he had to start Rex Burkhead against me in the semifinals, and he was the 1 seed, and you can imagine how that went for me. So was not happy about that. Still not over it, so I hate to pick Lucas.
I was
Rex
afraid of.
Burkhead will never do anything ever again in this league. Moving on. But a good pick,
man.
Lucas.
Yeah,
Obviously,
thank
Rex
you.
Burkhead had a great week last week. We know that all too well. So we're going to bring you our deep sleeper pick here in a moment. But before we do that, we're going to talk one last time about the Sports Hub. Ring in the new year right here at the Sports Hub, and make sure to make the Hub your game day destination. Bar opens at 10 a.m. Kitchen opens at 11 a.m. They got $5 bloodies and $5 screwdrivers and all kinds of specials on food all game day long. Be sure to stop in and register for that Rec Tech Grill as well. So come on into the Sports Hub and root on all your fantasy teams. NFL coverage on Fox, as always, begins at 9:30 a.m. with our local Packer programming. Terry and the boys take over the studio at 11, and then at noon, we've got a great matchup between the Rams and the Ravens, and then, of course, at 3:25, America's Game of the Week, the game we just talked about, the Cowboys and Cardinals. So it's sure to be a great doubleheader right here on Fox, and a great weekend to come warm up at the Sports Hub.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Sports Hub, once again. Now, Corey, for our deep sleeper, we're going back to the Buccaneers offense. Who do we got?
Well, if Scotty Miller isn't going to work, if Tyler Johnson's not going to work, then surely Brashad Perriman is going to work. His DraftKings price is only $4,300. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Fournette are all out. Now, again, this is Tuesday. Mike Evans went on the COVID list, I believe, yesterday or Sunday. Either way, he's been dealing with a hamstring. Not expected to play. He could play. The good news is I think Perriman has value regardless. Perriman was out last week with COVID, which was a big reason why we were interested in Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller. But Brashad Perriman in his career has produced when he's been given the opportunities. A lot of people who play fantasy redraft probably remember his championship run in 2019, which I believe was with the Buccaneers, where he averaged 17.7 fantasy points per game over the final 6 weeks, eclipsing 13.7 points in every single one of those weeks. He just blew up. I think he had a 34-point game and like a 29-point game.
He's insane.
And this is a revenge game alert. So sound that siren, that revenge game siren. He is playing against the Jets, his former team, where he spent the majority, I believe, of his relevant playing career was with the Jets. Of course, as mentioned, he did have that big breakout in 2019 at the end of the year. Again, I think that was with the Buccaneers. I don't have the research right in front of me. But this is another situation where who else? Who else are they going to throw to? I do believe he is the number 2 wide receiver in this offense with Mike Evans out behind Antonio Brown. I don't expect a goose egg from Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller again, certainly. But I do believe Brashad Perriman has a much safer floor than those guys did.
Yeah, I think he will get more than 1 target.
Remember, Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller combined for 1 target.
Yeah, if Tyler Johnson blows up this week and Brashad Perriman gets 1 target, I will be pretty upset.
So we finally went away from Laquan Treadwell, even though he still is, I believe, only going for like 4,000 on DraftKings.
Yeah, hop on him.
Despite having another strong week. But Brashad Perriman, that's the play.
That's the play.
Well, those are our picks for Week 17. Thank you guys for joining us once again. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at FFinsiders2548. And good luck on your picks in Week 17. And to all of you playing redraft championships, good luck to you as well.
Fox Fantasy Sleepers of the Week, brought to you by the Sports Hub.